Howdy folks, and welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles. As always, advert free, providing I'm not crap and I remember to turn them off after uploading the video, which is by no means guaranteed, you know what I'm like. Advert free, thanks to everybody who supports me on Patreon, and thank you very much, by the way, to everybody who does support me on Patreon. You really have no idea how much of a difference it makes. Anyway, Christmas is fast approaching, which means my annual Christmas break is also fast approaching. And I should probably talk about that. This is going to be the second to last episode of Mingles with Jingles of 2018. Next Monday's Mingles with Jingles will be the last one, because as of the 12th of December, I'm flying to the Czech Republic. To be specific, I'm flying to Prague. Never been to the Czech Republic. Always wanted to go. Finally going to get my wish. And technically it's a business trip, but there's no way I'm going to the Czech Republic for 2 days and just not seeing Prague. I mean, I've wanted to take a Christmas break in Prague since forever. It's one of the hottest Christmas break destinations in Europe, for good reason. There's all kinds of things to see and do. It's one of the oldest capital cities in Europe. There's all kinds of things to drink and eat. I hear the Christmas markets there are fantastic. There's an unbelievable number of shooting ranges in and around Prague as well, apparently, so I'm probably going to be taking advantage of that. But the reason that I was going to go in the first place was because of the World of Warships 3 vs 3 tournament, the finals of which are happening on the 15th and 16th of December. So I'm going to be broadcasting that live from the World of Warships Prague office, in company with Isolate and Flambas, as well as the usual suspects, the two German twins, Mr. Conway and Chrysanthos. Well, hang on a minute, Jingles. Didn't you just get through telling us in last week's episode of Mingles of Jingles that you were sick and tired of travelling, and that's the reason why you weren't going to Wargaming Fest? Well, it's one of the reasons why I wasn't going to Wargaming Fest. Another reason that ranked pretty high on the list were the whole visa requirements. You can't just as a British citizen go to Russia. You have to get permission from Russia to go to Russia first. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love St. Petersburg. And I'd probably love Moscow as well. But in order to get there, you first have to apply for a visa. And you have to do it in person. And that means going to London. And London's a major pain in the arse. And the visa itself is not cheap. Neither is the process of getting to and from London, and it needs to be done in advance, which means you can't use the passport for anything else if you want to get the passport back in time. And what am I going to do when I'm there? I'll be covering Wargaming Fest for 2 days, so I wouldn't get the opportunity to see much else of Moscow unless I was prepared to book some extra time, either before or after Wargaming Fest, to be away. But it's the weekend prior to Christmas, which would mean I'd be spending the weekend prior to Christmas, because it's just me. I'm not going with Rita, so I'd have to leave Rita at home alone right before Christmas. And I wasn't particularly keen on the idea of doing that. And what am I going to see at Wargaming Fest that I can't just find out from the World of Tanks or World of Warships portal while Wargaming Fest is going on? It's not like I was going to be broadcasting from there or anything. I'm not going to be getting anything exclusive that you're not going to be able to find out live as it happens from the internet. And I didn't know anybody else who was going. Well, not at the time. I know now that Flamu's going, but even so, Flamu's going to be doing his own thing while he's there. So, no. Now, Prague, on the other hand, why the hell not? I mean, first of all, it's easy to get there. You just go to the airport, say, a ticket to Prague, please, and 2 hours later, you're there. Well, actually, 2 tickets to Prague, please, because I'm taking Rita. We're going to spend a couple of days just exploring Prague before the 3 vs 3 tournament on the 15th and the 16th. So we're heading out on the 12th. Plus, I know all kinds of people there anyway. All of the World of Warships team. And of course, let's not forget, I'm not just going there to broadcast by myself on the 15th and 16th for the 3 vs 3 World of Warships tournament. They're also having Isolate and Flambas there. Now, I've met Isolate a couple of times. I met him at the Swedish Tank Museum at Arsenalen, and I've met him on 2 occasions now in St. Petersburg at the World of Warships offices. He's a great guy. Looking forward to seeing him again. But we're also broadcasting with Flambas, and I've never met Flambas. I mean, I've spoken to him on a number of occasions. I get along with him really well, but I've never had the opportunity to meet him, and I will by going to Prague. Plus, he's taking Mrs. Flanbass along. And everybody's basically doing the same thing as me and Rita. We're all turning up a couple of days early, so we're all going to be able to go out and see things and do things and drink things and eat things, as a group. This is not something that would have happened at Wargaming Fest in Moscow, so I'm going to Prague on the 12th of December, back on the 17th, and arriving in Prague is going to mark the start of my annual Christmas break. So, what am I going to be getting up to? What am I going to be doing over my Christmas and New Year break? Well, obviously, on the 15th and the 16th, I'm broadcasting the 3 vs 3 World of Warships tournament from the World of Warships office in Prague, but other than that, I plan to be playing a lot more of this. This is Horizon Zero Dawn on the PlayStation 4. I've no idea how far I am through it, but it's really sinking its teeth into me in exactly the same way that Red Dead Redemption, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, Far Cry 5, in exactly the same way that those kind of open world games did, because it's pretty much the same, except with a really interesting story. I mean, not that the others didn't, but this does too. There's probably going to be a video series on this appearing at some point in the not too far distant future. And you can probably expect the first of those videos to be appearing at some point during during my Christmas break, because as you all know by now, I'm just as crap at taking time off as I am at just about everything else. In fact, quick little story for you here. This very weekend, you see, this weekend Rita was away playing with tanks. She went on Friday, she's back late on Sunday. In fact, as I sit recording this, she's still not back yet. So, for most of Friday, because this weekend I made sure that I had Saturday's video up and done well in advance. So for most of Friday, for all of Saturday, and for most of Sunday, I've had the house to myself. It's just me, the 2 cats, and Boo. And holy shit, I got bored. And that's just 2 days. In just 2 days, I was sitting around, I thought I'll watch some movies. I caught up on some shows on Netflix and Amazon Prime. And I was just, I needed to do something. So we'll talk about something that I tried to do afterwards. We'll get onto that in a moment, because it ties into what I'm going to be doing over Christmas. But for just a 2-day period with nothing to do, I started getting bored. So Christmas break, 12th of December until, not sure exactly when, but very early in January, like the 2nd or the 3rd. That's 3 weeks. So the chances of me not putting any videos up, when I'm just getting bored after a 2-day period of inactivity, the chances of me not putting any videos up after 3 weeks are going to be, well, slim. Right. So there are going to be some videos. I know it. You know it. But at least I'm not going to be under pressure to put the video up every day, which is, that's the whole point of my taking a break. I can put a video up because I want to, because I'm bored, because I think, you know what? This is a cool opportunity to show them this new game, for example. One of the games, which I was hoping to be able to introduce you to over the Christmas break period, was X4 Foundations. A number of you have been asking, Jingles, are you going to play X4? I thought I was going to play X4 Foundations. I was a big fan of the original X Beyond the Frontier. X2 was really good. X Rebirth, yeah, not so much. The series kind of lost its way a little bit there. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't very good either. But I've been hearing really good things about X4. It was promised, at least, to be a return to the core values of the X series of games. Just go anywhere, do anything, whatever way you want to do it. And I do like those kind of games. So I went ahead and bought it, downloaded it, installed it, and then I spent a couple of hours trying to figure out how to play it. And when I say trying to figure out how to play it, I don't mean, do I want to be a pirate, a bounty hunter, a law enforcement officer, a miner, a trader, none of that. Never got that far. I mean, trying to figure out just how to make my ship move in the direction that I wanted it to. Many happy and joyful hours staring at settings screens, tweaking various different configurations, and wrestling with the god-awful interface. I mean, I am absolutely sure that there is an amazing and incredibly deep game in there, but the length of time that you have to put in, or that I was going to have to put in, just to be able to get my ship to move from point A to point B was getting kind of daunting. So I thought, you know what? Maybe it's just me. I mean, let's face it. Maybe it's just me being crap here. The odds were good that it was just me being crap, so I thought, you know what? Screw it. Exit the game, and I turned to Twitch. Because I thought, somebody must be streaming X4. I mean, it's a brand new game. It was exactly the same when Fallout 76 was released. There was nothing on Twitch but people playing Fallout 76. And sure enough, Twitch was jam-packed full of people playing X4. Maybe I'll learn something from them. Now, I say that Twitch was jam-packed full of people playing X4, but that's stretching the truth just a little bit. Twitch was jam-packed full of people staring at the settings screens, trying to figure out what it all meant, fruitlessly trying to program their joysticks, and failing all of the tutorials. It turns out it wasn't just me. Went to take a look at the game's scores on Metacritic, and it's achieving a score of 6.4 at the moment. It's receiving mostly mixed reviews. And when I say mixed reviews, I mean people are either saying this game is absolutely amazing, or they're saying it sucks, it's terrible, it's an unplayable mess. There's very little in the middle. Now, I have absolutely no doubt that if you go back to Metacritic a month from now, that 6.4 aggregate review score will be much higher, because people will have figured out how to play the game. And they'll be exploring the vast and deep universe in X4 Foundations and having a fantastic time doing it. But right now, so many people just haven't got a clue how to start playing, because it is ridiculously complicated and the UI is terrible. And it's a real shame, because Egosoft have clearly put an astonishing amount of work into this title. But first impressions count. If you've just bought a new game and after an hour you still haven't figured out how to play it, I mean, a lot of people are just going to go, nah, it's not worth the effort. And they're going to ask for a refund. And I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen to X4 Foundations in the first couple of weeks of release. But I'm also sure that enough people are going to stick it out, and word of mouth is going to go around, and tutorials are going to appear on various different websites and YouTube channels, helping people get over that initial brick wall difficulty level associated with just figuring out how to play this game in the first place. So the shitty UI and the initial complexity are probably going to guarantee that this game is never going to be a huge success for Egosoft, but it's probably going to be enough of a success for Egosoft that they can continue to develop titles set in the X universe. And hopefully, maybe, by the time they come around to developing X5 at some point in the not too distant future, they'll have been persuaded to spend more than the price of a pint of beer and a packet of crisps on the UI. And so more people will be able to enjoy the amount of work that they have actually put into everything else in their games. Now, there was another game that I was really looking forward to being able to play over the course of the next couple of weeks, and I had no issues with the UI or control system being too difficult to get to grips with. And I wasn't entirely sure whether or not I was going to tell you about this in this episode of Mingles with Jingles or whatever, because it's incredibly embarrassing. I had me a bit of a Jingles moment. The game that I'm talking about here, of course, is the new Subnautica game. Now, a huge bunch of you have been saying, Jingles, we really loved your Subnautica playthrough. When are you going to play the new Subnautica game? Well, the answer to that, of course, has always been, well, I don't know, when are they going to release it? However, while a couple of weeks ago, browsing the Subnautica website in order to get an answer to that question, I came across a very interesting date. December the 4th. Yeah, tomorrow. December the 4th this year. And it's right there on the Subnautica website. It's the PlayStation 4 release date. Now, I thought it was a bit weird because the original Subnautica didn't come out on consoles. It's a PlayStation, it's It's a PC game. And yet it's right there. Subnautica, released. PlayStation 4, December 4th. I thought it was a bit strange that they were leading the release on the PlayStation 4, but for the last 2 weeks, I have been eagerly anticipating playing the new Subnautica game on my PlayStation 4 as early as tomorrow. I have no doubt that many of you are already facepalming hard because Jingles, the clue's in the title. Subnautica, PlayStation 4. It didn't say Subnautica Below Zero, the new standalone Subnautica title, because it's not DLC, by the way, it's a complete standalone new game. No, that's what I was waiting for, and that's what I thought I was pre-ordering. And I probably would have pre-ordered it if I'd been able to find it in the course of the last 2 weeks, because I keep going to the PlayStation Store on my PS4 Pro and searching for Subnautica. But because it wasn't listed as a pre-order, that is the one and only thing that stopped me from buying the same game twice, just on a different platform. Oh, Jingles don't ever change. It would have probably been funnier if it had been available for pre-order, because I would have been feeling, well, even more stupid than I already am, because I would have pre-ordered it. I got so excited I didn't bother to read the details. I was like, oh, it's the new Subnautica game, yes. Oh, it's out on the PS4 first. Excellent. I have a hang on a second. Wait a minute. Ein Minuten bitte. It's not quite the game that I thought it was going to be. Very lucky for me, it wasn't actually available for pre-order. It doesn't make me feel any less stupid, of course. That's how close I came. And then, of course, I made it worse by telling everybody about it. Anyway, moving on to a subject that's kind of depressing. More than a little boring, and yet a subject which many of you have been waiting to hear my opinion on over the previous months, and I am of course talking about Article 13. Now, if you've been living under a rock for the last 6 months, or you just live in the USA, you may have never heard of Article 13. What? No, that's not a jab at people from the USA. This is a European Union directive, or it's the 13th article of a European Union directive. It doesn't directly affect anybody outside of the European Union, and I wouldn't be expecting mainstream American news outlets to be covering it, especially when they've got important things to worry about, like what Kim Kardashian happens to be wearing this week. This is the European Union Directive on Copyright in the Digital Single Market, also known as the EU Copyright Directive. And there are two particular articles in this directive. Two articles, Article 11, which has been referred to as the link tax, and Article 13, which has been referred to as the meme ban. And it's these two articles in particular that are causing problems. You see, what this all boils down to, I'll attempt to simplify it. Trust me, I needed it simplified. But what it all boils down to is that traditionally, if you own copyright on something, it's been your responsibility to see that that copyright is enforced. Now, YouTube in particular, with their Content ID system, have been bending over backwards to make this process as easy as possible for the copyright holders. In the process, of course, they made it even easier for people to lodge spurious and downright false copyright claims, which, of course, affected not YouTube. No. It affected the likes of me. And the introduction of YouTube's Content ID system had a fairly rocky start. It was beyond shit at first. It was absolutely terrible. And it cost me a fortune. Put a lot of YouTubers out of business, particularly smaller channels who were just using the income from YouTube to supplement a pension or a medical disability. You know, it's never the big players who suffer when this sort of thing is introduced. It's always the little guy. But by and large, eventually, YouTube's Content ID system is doing a pretty good job of being fair to everybody. I mean, I hated it at first, and it really did cost me a lot of money in the first 6 months after it was introduced. Mostly, in fact, almost entirely down to bullshit copyright claims, where there was no copyright breach whatsoever. There were some, and I hold my hand up and accept responsibility for those, but the overwhelming majority were complete bullshit. Now, however, it's doing a pretty good job. I think that YouTube's Content ID system is making the best of a bad business and is pretty fair to everybody. It took a long time for its algorithms to figure out what was what and establish a, a fair baseline, and is now pretty much always getting it right. Of course, the people who suffered while it was sorting its shit out were not the big corporations with all the money to hire the lawyers to enforce their copyright in the first place. And most of it isn't even done by real people. It's just bots surfing YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or whatever, but you get the idea. It's always the little guy that suffers. So anyway, what's going to change now? How could it possibly get any worse? Oh, it can always get worse. You see, this EU directive, what it's going to do is, as well as putting responsibility on copyright holders, big media companies and so on, for ensuring that their copyright is enforced. I mean, that's not changing. And the responsibility of individual uploaders, like myself, for ensuring that I don't use any copyrighted material, or if I do, I hold a valid license for it, that's not going away either. All of this, of course, in YouTube's case, is taken care of by their Content ID system. Now, what these two articles are going to change is that it's also going to put a legal responsibility upon the platform, so for example, YouTube itself, to ensure that I don't upload anything and make money from anything that could possibly infringe the rights of the big media companies that own the copyright on everything. Now remember, the whole Content ID system that YouTube introduced that caused so much pain and grief for so many people, that wasn't introduced because YouTube was legally responsible for ensuring that its users didn't upload copyrighted material. That was introduced because YouTube was shitting themselves over losing money when a whole bunch of advertisers started objecting to stuff that was being uploaded and threatened to pull their advertising contracts from YouTube. What this directive is going to do is take this one step further and make YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Reddit, 4chan, everybody legally responsible for any copyright breaches that are committed by people who upload to their services. Now, you saw how much YouTube panicked when it was threatened with losing advertising revenue. Can you imagine how much YouTube is going to shit the bed if they suddenly become financially and legally responsible for any copyright breaches that happen to be committed on their platform? And this, of course, doesn't just apply to YouTube. It applies to everybody. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, 4chan, Reddit, everybody. But here's the thing that's got everybody hot and bothered. You see, the terms of the directive are intended to prevent the illegal streaming or upload of copyrighted music and video. And I don't have a problem with that. I don't see how anybody could really have a problem with that. I mean, surely a recording artist deserves to earn money from their work as much as anybody else. The problem is that the terms of the article are worded so vaguely that they could cover just about anything. And the example that's often given about what just about anything could mean are internet memes. Yeah, really. I know it sounds ridiculous, but there's a method to this madness if you just stop and think it through for a few minutes. Picture the scene. Article 13 has become law in the EU. A couple of days later, you're browsing Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. You spot a meme that you think is pretty funny, and you stick it up on your Facebook page for your friends to have a good laugh at. Well, nobody's going to take you to court because you put a meme on Facebook. Well, no, probably not, because you don't have particularly deep pockets, do you? But Facebook does. YouTube does. Twitter does. Suddenly it's all starting to make sense, isn't it? Think about this. If I'm doing a World of Warships video, and somebody scores 5 kills and earns the Kraken Unleashed award, and I put up a 5-second clip of the Kraken from the movie Clash of the Titans, it's highly unlikely that Warner Brothers are going to see me in court over this and attempt to sue me for everything that I'm worth. Because I'm not worth that much. I don't have particularly deep pockets. It's probably not worth their time and effort. They'll claim the video. Oh yeah. I can put a 30-minute video up with 5 seconds of copyrighted Warner Brothers material in it, and they will claim every penny that video makes, but they're not going to take me to court and sue me. But they're going to take YouTube to court and sue them. Because YouTube has much, much deeper pockets than I do, and it's worth them taking YouTube to court. And with that directive now passed into EU law, that's exactly what they're all going to be able to do. Now, once again, cast your mind back to just how much YouTube shat the bed when they were threatened with losing advertising revenue from advertisers who didn't care for the kind of videos that their adverts were being laid over. Advertisers who, let's not forget, were not doing their own due diligence, were in fact just handing over large sums of money to YouTube and saying, stick our adverts on something, we don't care what, just make sure it gets lots of traffic. This saw the introduction of the Content ID system, and it wasn't YouTube who suffered, it certainly wasn't the big media corporations who suffered, it was us. Do you remember Euro? He used to do hilarious World of Warships meme videos. He did How to Atlanta, How to Scharnhorst. Absolutely hilarious videos. Do you ever stop to ask yourself why he hasn't done one of these videos in 6 months? It's because of YouTube Content ID. He can still do the videos, he can still upload them, but he doesn't earn a penny from any of them. The big worry now for all of the social media companies, like YouTube, Discord, Twitter, and so on, is that now they have to come up with a way of preventing anything that they could get sued over from even being uploaded in the first place. And we all know how good these big media companies are at doing this kind of shit. Again, cast your minds back to when YouTube launched their Content ID system. For the first 3 months, practically every video I uploaded was getting flagged within minutes of being published as violating somebody's copyright somewhere. None of them were, but that didn't stop them getting flagged and instantly demonetized. Now, of course, I was appealing these bullshit claims every day, and the videos were getting reinstated, eventually. But the review process was taking anything from 2 days to 4 days, sometimes as long as a week. And let's face it, once I've put a video up, they tend to pretty much get all of the views they're ever going to get, or as much as 80% of all of the views that they're ever going to get in the first 2 days, because I put a new video up every day. So having these videos released back to me 4 days or 7 days later wasn't actually doing any good at all. And in fact, for the first 3 months after the Content ID system went up, I was basically working every day for nothing. And if it hadn't been for your generosity and the support that you gave me on Patreon, I would have been out of business. So bearing in mind just how badly I got screwed, and I survived, a lot of YouTubers didn't, but bearing in mind how badly we pretty much all got screwed by a system that YouTube implemented to check videos for copyright after they'd been published. But now YouTube has a new problem. You see, now, unless YouTube want to find out just how deep into their pockets Warner Brothers and Sony can extend their fingers, YouTube is going to have to come up with some kind of system to somehow ensure that no copyrighted material even makes it as far as being published in the first place. Also, bear in mind that in a lot of cases, the copyright holders themselves can't even agree on who owns copyright to what. I've had videos where the very same section of music was being claimed by 14 or 15 different companies. If the copyright holders can't agree on who actually owns the copyright, what chance does YouTube have? So consider this. I upload videos every day. Well, nearly every day. I don't upload videos on Sundays. Although sometimes I also upload a video on Sundays. Now imagine how long that schedule is going to last. If everything that I upload has to be vetted and approved by YouTube for copyright compliance before it even sees the light of day. Now ask yourself, who's going to end up suffering because of all of this? Is it going to be Warner Brothers? Is it going to be Sony Music? I don't think so. Is it going to be YouTube, Discord, Twitter, Instagram? No, I don't think so either. Maybe in the short term. I don't know what sort of systems they're going to come up with, but I'll guarantee whatever they decide upon, it's going to be something that ensures that Warner Brothers and Sony's fingers are kept as far away from their pockets as they possibly can. So who's going to end up suffering because of all this? Well, it's never going to be the big players, is it? It's always going to be the little people, people like you and people like me. And while nobody really knows exactly what's going to happen or what the implications are really going to be, until the social media platforms unveil how they're going to cope with this new directive, it's unlikely to be anything good. All I know, beyond any doubt, is that whatever happens, it's going to hurt. And on that incredibly depressing bombshell, that's it for this week's episode of Mingles with Jingles. Maybe I should start doing reruns. That would work. As long as I know something's already passed the copyright filter, I can just keep running it indefinitely. I'm sure nobody would notice. Anyway, that's it for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.